Welcome to the No Name Brand Podcast. My name is Sashka Hanarampal, actress, singer, dancer, turned brand marketing, sales, and advertising strategist who brands your soul. And each week I bring you an inspiring person or message to help you discover your undergod, turn up your leadership notches, challenge the status quo, because you're fast and furious with a powerful message to share with the world. Thank you for taking time out with me today, and without further ado, let's get our creative and wisdom juices flowing. She's been described as having the striking ability to create new creative pathways for companies with her vibrant approach to creating new products and services, which is unparalleled. She has an extraordinary ability to capture the essence of a strategy and elevate it to new heights each and every time. She believes we create one moment at a time. She lives for moments of true alignment and balance between idea and reality, thought and action, and being and doing, because that is where the magic of creation happens. Please welcome Radiah Rhodes. Hello, Radiah. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. For me, it's almost the end of the day. Whoop, whoop. And for
Yes.
you, beginning.
Yes, but it's a glorious day, so I'm so glad to be here.
You see. So I'm going to start this off with the first thing, because you can't see what Radiah is wearing, but I can. Radiah is an avid tennis player, so she's very, very disciplined. Like when you go on her Facebook profile, she's always somewhere on a sports field or holding that tennis racket. So you know this woman's got discipline. It's like, And because of this discipline, I know from experience as well that a disciplined athlete is also disciplined in other areas of their lives, because otherwise that sport won't happen. Mm-hmm. So how are you disciplined, or are you disciplined? Because that was just an assumption. Are you disciplined in your business?
So I would say I am, just by nature. I am an engineer by training. And so there's a lot of structure that comes with engineering and a lot of the courses we have to take. So naturally, I probably am a bit of a nerd and obsessive in a lot of ways that we'd all call discipline. So in my business, not only do I keep a planner, but I design a planner, right, for how my days go and how my weeks go. But I'm a nice balance. I like to balance. A good plan is fantastic, but reality is reality. Yeah. So I'm very disciplined in looking ahead, creating a strategy for each quarter, creating a strategy for the week, and then I kind of let the days flow, ebb and flow. I really like to weekly plan more so than daily, because I like to let the day do what it does.
Oh, I like that. Just keep it, a little bit of surprise, spontaneity still allowed.
I always say 7 or more billion of us on a spinning ball in the middle of the universe. I think some things are going to happen out of our control. So
yeah, reckon.
Yeah, maybe a few.
Oh, man. So we're going to have a little bit of a history on Radiah. So you mentioned that you spent your childhood between poverty and luxury, which is how you developed an appreciation for your humble beginnings and a desire to live well and beautifully. Can you expand on that a little more?
Sure. So I grew up living with my grandparents for a period of time, and then living with my mother as a single mother. It was the 70s. So, parents were a little crazy in the 70s, and I was a child of that. So, my mother just didn't have a lot of money, and she worked most of the time. So I was alone, a latchkey kid. That's what we called them here, where you go home from school there by yourself because your parents are working. So we lived in an attic apartment over someone's home, and we moved to many different places, and I lived with a lot of different people when my mother kind of had a hard time making the rent or couldn't care for me sufficiently. At the same time, my father remarried and actually was at least dating my stepmother, whose parents, her father was in the military. He was a major in the military, and my grandmother is actually German. And they moved to New Jersey, my father and she met, and they married. So I literally would go from living in places where there were mice and roaches and I was just trying to make it, to staying with my grandmother, with my stepmother's family, and eating on china and polished silver and crystal, drinking out of crystal glasses and having lobster. And it was only 15 minutes away apart.
Wow.
So it was just very interesting to go on holidays or on some days in the summer to be with my dad and live that kind of life, and then go back on a day-to-day basis and live a completely different life. And so Of course, I was mostly in spaces where we didn't have a lot. And I appreciate and understand it, a hard work ethic. My mother had to do what she could. And then I also appreciated, of course, feeling safe and secure and going to the beach and some travels and beautiful art and foods. And so I just learned to appreciate both.
Oh, I love that. A rags to riches story. Well, I don't know why I just said that, because I don't like that saying.
I know what you mean, though.
So where did your love for design and business come from?
So, like I said, design, my father's side of the family is super artistic. I have an uncle who danced with Alvin Ailey Dance Theater.
Wow.
When he was in his 20s. My other uncle is a chef. My father is a photographer and writer. So, and even with my stepmother's family, I have an uncle who was an artist there. Beautiful art and photography. And so I just really always aspired to have some sort of creative power. I looked at my dad and I just thought, my gosh, like he can do anything. He can do everything. And I think a almost like mystical fascination that I had with art and creativity. I always admired it. And however, on the flip side, similarly, my mother is very structured. She's worked for the last probably 25, almost 30 years in the financial industry.
Wow.
And as an executive admin. So again, that balance of structure. And I went to college and took on engineering because most people thought, my teachers, oh, you're super smart in math and science. And so I kind of just followed that, but somehow gravitated towards industrial engineering, which is, again, a balance. There's some design of facilities that you do. There's product design that you get into in industrial design, as well as some of the hardcore engineering. So it's just been cultivated, I think, this balance in me all the way through. And then I worked for Procter & Gamble for about almost 20 years.
Wow.
And I recently left. Actually, April 30th was my last day in corporate America.
God.
So yes, so I'm now full-time entrepreneur. But Procter & Gamble, you talk about discipline. It was a privilege to build my career in that company where I could see so many different brands, so many different disciplines of how you actually drive a business. It was just unlike anything else to learn about business. And I worked for CoverGirl and Max Factor Cosmetics for that time, for those 17 years. And so it was a great balance between running the business and the beauty industry.
That's phenomenal. What a beautiful balance, like art and structure or creativity. Beautiful. Because it's like left brain, right brain thing, and there's just the balance between, because we either or a lot of the times, and you just kind of box yourself in and go, well, I'm left brain. No, I'm right brain.
Right.
Radiah is like, I'm both.
That's right. I love it. I really do. I love it because I can get so immersed from a passion standpoint in terms of my creativity and ideas just flow. But I love to see them made real. And it really does require structure and discipline to take and make an ideal real.
Because that's the thing, because we often have lots of ideas, but we just never put them into action.
Exactly.
Very nice. Now, you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur, as you have your own business, Radiah Rhodes, and you're a co-founder of Evoke Life. I particularly love entrepreneurs who have such diversity. There's so much to be learned. What have been your challenges, if any, in running two businesses?
There have been several. Yeah. I think what I believe about entrepreneurship, especially when you're forming your own brand and you're forming a team, it's very easy to get your own identity confused with the business. And so keeping myself clear about who I am as a kind of an unlimited, bigger entity, bigger energy, and being able to distinguish the brands from me so that they can fully be developed and leveraged. That has been one of the challenges. I started these companies because I wanted to leave corporate, quite frankly. And so I became almost obsessed with, I want to be free. I want to be myself. I want to create something of my own. And I could never get the company right because it never quite fit me. No, that's not what I'm trying to communicate. That's not what I'm trying to say. And so kind of branching out and defining myself and then looking at these brands and these businesses as levers for me to express myself and separating them. It was very challenging to do that. But once I did it, I became completely free, and then the businesses started to flourish in and of themselves. So separating myself from the business was very challenging. I would also say time, determining where I'm going to focus my energy and effort at what particular point in time. Because you never know who you meet or you run into and what ideas start to flow in one area, but starting and finishing and focusing in one area so that you can move into a different area and do that really well. That's always challenging because I don't get to kind of choose when the ideas flow in. but I do have to kind of direct them.
Yeah.
So that's where my planning comes in, to try to make sure I can always see the pathway of each of the businesses and what the goals are there, so that as new things pop up, I'm able to make really smart choices about where to focus and how to focus to keep everything moving.
I like that. So I'm going to ask you, so I can imagine Radiah is pretty organized. I know what I want. I know what I'm doing. Speak to the hand when I'm not interested, whatever. And if someone's got an opinion, it's like, that's great, but. And at the same time, I want to ask you, because you touched on this just before. So who are you? Have you found you?
Absolutely. I mean, that is what I do, and it's really part of who I am. So let me give you a little bit of backstory, just so that what I tell you doesn't sound completely crazy and ethereal.
Love it.
I, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, hit a pretty low point personally, professionally. And really a lot of it was because of all the change I had gone through in a very short period of time, about 24 months, bought and sold houses. I got married. I had 2 children, and I switched professional assignments twice. So those are pretty much the things next to like having someone pass away. And we did have several people in the family actually pass away during that time. It was just so much change. And I was miserable coming out of it, but I had everything. I was healthy. I was fit. I had a successful marriage. I had 2 healthy children. My parents were both living. I had a great career, but I was literally miserable. I was exhausted. I was pissed off. I was mad at everything. And so who I thought I was and what I thought I knew, none of it was kind of playing out. And my dad actually asked me that exact question that you just asked. He said, was talking to him one day complaining, and he said, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Well, what do you mean? How do you want me to answer that?" And he would not give me a hint. He said, "Just think about it and come back to me and answer the question." So I did, and it probably was a week or so. And I came back and I said, "I got it." And he said, "What is it?" And I said, "I'm life-changing love." And he said, "You do got it. That's it." I said, "All I know right now, I don't know that if you have a happy marriage or great children or a happy career or a nice home, I don't know that any of that means anything. I thought I knew that it did, but it didn't turn out that way. But what I do know is that when I love people, myself, when I love, life changes." And that for me is who I am, the highest version of myself. I mean, I really do believe that we are limitless beings and we're undefinable. And so again, when we start to brand ourselves and do all these different things, sometimes it puts us in a box and we lose who we are, like the truth of who we are, like the star stuff. And so who I am is life-changing love at the highest version of myself. And what I love is what we've talked about. I love making ideas real. And so that's what I do. But I am life-changing love. And that plays itself out in so many different ways in these different businesses, and the way that I show up with my family and my children and being with you, right here, right now. So that's who I am.
Oh, I love that. Life-changing love, LCL. When your clients come to you, how do you attract your clients? Let me ask you that first. How do you attract your clients? So what are you putting out there? Are you putting out the life-changing love, or are you putting out a different business message?
So I'll answer it 2 ways. I mean, the way I really attract my clients is through meeting people and having conversations. And that's me putting out life-changing love. It's me listening to people. It's me seeing who they are at a higher version than what they might be seeing for themselves. It's me hearing the ideas that they have and shining some light on it. And so that's the reality of how I attract clients. I wish I had this great business system or something, that did some things, but really that's what it comes down to. And I've had a hard time messaging because, again, being limitless, how do you determine what message you're actually going to kind of pin down? And so for me, overarching, and we use it mostly for Evoke, but being is the new doing is a message that really resonates with a lot of my clients, because they are primarily women who are in high demand, whether it's from their families or through business or community. They have multiple demands. And so they're doing a lot. And they're usually pretty tired or off center or forgetting themselves. And so when we talk about being is the new doing, what we are opening up is this conversation about how to actually experience your life and the actual results you want without doing so much. And looking at this anatomy of who you're being and how you're showing up as a way to actually accelerate the results you want with less doing. So that is the message. I'd say the business message is being is the new doing. And who I'm out there actually attracting, how I'm actually attracting people, is life-changing love.
Very compact. I like that.
Thank you.
Because you mentioned this now, being instead of doing. So been going this way for quite a while. We went away from the big village and we went all out on our own and we moved away from home. And then we kind of away from home and you're kind of like, oh, I miss the village. You don't find your way back to the village. You don't find that support. And you really land up just doing, that we've lost the art of being. We don't know how to be. For the listeners listening now who do a lot, whether you're woman, man, doesn't really matter, doing a lot in the house, with your business, breadwinner. What are 3 things that you can kind of give with us to mull on how we can be? We need both. We do need to do, but just to kind of up level that being a little bit, what are 3 tips guidance that you can give the listeners?
I love that. So a couple things came to me. One is authenticity, right? So I'm going to give you 3 A's. And I love that you said not tips, because tips is more doing usually.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So it starts with authenticity, and I would say maybe awareness. The more we can become aware of who we are, that's where the being lives. It lives in who we are, not in what we're doing or the possessions that we have.
Yeah.
And the way we talk about it in Evoke is an anatomy. We actually go through a specific anatomy of being so that you can pinpoint. It's really your beliefs, your thoughts, feelings, and there's definitions we have for all of those. But becoming aware of the anatomy of who you're being. What does it look like? How does it show up? What does it feel like in your body? What kind of thought patterns does it hold? So that awareness is what allows you to be authentic, right? And I think about authenticity, I think about something matching the origin. And so that origin is the definition of who you are. So when you are aware of who you are, then you can be authentic. And that is where being has its confidence and can be anchored. So the first thing I'd say is authenticity. The second thing I would say is alignment. Looking at your life, is it aligned with your authentic self? So all of your resources, does your home reflect who you are? Do your relationships reflect who you are? Does your business, your work, does your schedule reflect who you are? Where you spend your time and your effort and energy? Does the language you use reflect who you are? So alignment is super important. The more in alignment you are, the more freedom you actually have to be. So that's why I love design, because you can structure things. To me, design is the arrangement of elements to accomplish a particular purpose. That's Charles Eames, actually, that's his definition. But I love it. Design is so smart, not just this frivolous thing. It's very intentional. And so alignment, I think, is the second thing. And then the third thing I'll say is accountability, because we are human and we are unlimited. And so we can be all over the place very naturally. But having people in your lives, having structures, triggers that will hold you accountable. And I don't mean rake you over the coals because you aren't doing something, but I mean literally taking an account. Do you have points set up where you really literally stop, take an account of who am I being? How are my relationships? What experiences am I really having? And you ask yourself those questions so that you can really go through an account of how you're living and who you're being. So I would say authenticity, alignment, and accountability are 3 magical ways to really get into being versus doing.
I love that. What is one of the most exciting projects you've worked on up to date, and why?
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
I mean, because this is what I do, I'm also a project manager. So I work on lots of projects, right? So I can think of everything from when I first started. My first engineering job was with Intel Corporation, and I worked on the Pentium 2 chip. And now I think we're at Pentium 35. I don't even know. That was a long time ago. But that was exciting. I've worked for years at Procter & Gamble designing and launching new cosmetics for CoverGirl and Max Factor, the foundation. So some of those were super exciting. I would say, and I'm thinking business focused, but Evoke, when we launched this product, it's called the B-Print, which is about blueprinting who you're being. For about a year or so, my partners and I had just taught a class. We had some PowerPoints and we get on the phone and we teach a class. And for whatever reason, just got a divine download to develop a product. And so we wrote this workbook and we developed this template and these tools and diagrams. And it was just unreal. I imagine like Picasso or someone, just getting into a zone, or even an athlete like Michael Jordan, like getting into a zone of creativity and having all these divine ideas flow through you, all these concepts that I'm a nerd about that completely light me up. So this whole concept of who you're being and an anatomy of who you're being. And we talk a lot about intention. So we measure who you're being by your level of intention. And we developed a scale around intention. And that is brilliant. It's so brilliant. And so when things are super profound, but very simple, I get geeked out. Completely geeked out. Like the most profound thing in the world is energy, and there's all these complex mathematical calculations as an engineer, but I have like a 14 level scale that says your energy is going either from sabotaging at the very bottom up through embodiment at the very top. And people look at that and they go, oh my gosh, and they get a truth instantly just by looking at it. That lights me up. So that intention scale and that B print is something that I'm super proud of. And I was so inspired. I don't even remember how we created it. It just feels like this blur of passion and intelligence that happened.
I love that. Passion and intelligence. Phi, PHI. Sorry, all these little things coming to mind. Your little pattern.
Yes.
Yeah. Who is one of your favorite role models that has influenced you and your business up to date and your life up to date?
Yeah. So I always say I never really grew up with a lot of role models in that sense. I always say that grace is what has really guided me through my life. Because of how I grew up that I shared earlier, there was always someone or something that gave me exposure to something new that just took me another step, whether it was someone in my family or a teacher or a family friend or a mentor. There was always someone there to just show me something new that I had no idea about. I didn't know I was going to go to college until I was a junior in high school. I literally looked at, thank God most of my friends were older than me. So when they went off to college, I was like, where did they go? Literally, like, where is everybody going? And again, by the grace of God, I had joined different activities and I had done really well academically. So I had some options, not having planned for it. So it's really been grace for me that it's influenced all of this, because it was just nothing that I ever knew about, never knew could happen for me anyway. So that is what I would say really has influenced me. I love Russell Simmons. I really do. I love the ability to be hip hop and mogul and yogi. That really resonates with me, being from New Jersey, being super hip hop. I love hip hop, and being and being artsy and creative and really reading things and loving Deepak Chopra, all of it. You know what I mean? So Russell Simmons really resonates with me. And Mother Oprah.
Mother Oprah, that's brilliant.
Who doesn't love Mother? We call her Mother Oprah. So, and Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
He's
definitely a visionary. It's a whole different story. Steve Jobs, I'm just like, he was one of the reasons that sparked my signature program, Soul Brand Marketing. When I realized that irrespective of how big your company is, whether it's Procter & Gamble, whether it's Apple, if you don't have your core message, your life purpose, and you don't know who you are, everything else falls flat. Everything.
That's right.
Like you've seen yourself when your dad said to you, baby, who are you?
Yeah.
And you kind of like, what do you mean, who am I? I'm your dad. I'm your daughter.
Right. Why are you asking?
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't have that, because it's not the money that brings you happiness. It's not the cars. It's not the children. It's not the relationship. It's not the house. It's not anything outside of you. It is how you were saying, your energy level. It is that embodiment that you're reaching for. Which actually brings me to something I want to ask you as well, because you were talking about energy. And I think believe is the wrong word, but what is your feeling into affirmations and afformations? Because you're a very, very strong, grounded woman, a real pillar to lean on. And a lot of people, myself included, when you're a strong person, a lot of people lean on you, which is fine. And then ask, where do you draw your strength from? Which is something that I could ask you as well. And but at the same time, it's like there's so many different elements that you draw your strength from. And for a long time, when I got into energy, it was all affirmations. And then I discovered afformations, and I was like, damn, that's what I like more. I like the affirmations and the whole energy thing. So tell me a little bit more, or tell us a little bit more. Sorry, there are people listening. Oh, sorry. Hi. Tell us a little bit more about how you fuse energy, affirmations, afformations, drawing your strength, being that pillar into your embodiment.
So for me, I'm going to say it's experience.
Ooh.
It's through experience and presence, which can be scary. And I'm a very heady person. I read a lot. I'm in my thoughts a lot. And so it is intentional. I have to be intentional about represencing myself and experiencing the present moment. But I believe that that is where the soul is forged, in the experiences of the moment. So I put myself out there. We call them oh shit actions, as opposed to be bullshit actions, right? And that's the doing that we all are mostly doing all the time. It's activity, and a lot of it is BS. Not that it's not meaningful or for some purpose, but they're not necessarily those big things that really move you in the direction of what you envision. And so one example is quite simply when you define yourself, when you say this is who I am, and not even at the biggest level, but for example, when I decided to move from being an engineer to saying, okay, I'm a coach. And then I said, okay, well, now I'm a designer. I actually evolved what I called myself. I put myself out there as that. And I allowed the world to kind of reflect back to me. How am I showing up in terms of what I said or how it was received? So when I said I'm a coach, I enrolled myself in a coaching program. I was in conversation when I would go to work and I would lead certain teams or meetings. I would not give the answers. I would coach the group. I just really took on the embodiment and the experience of however I had defined myself. And that was reinforcing. That's where the groundedness comes from. As long as I'm doing the defining up front, I'm not allowing the external to define me, but I'm declaring this is who I am, and I'm intentionally putting that out in the world, and I'm allowing myself to stay present with the experience of whatever comes with that. And then I'm able to make choices around how I want to respond, whether I want to continue to reinforce that definition or whether I want to tweak it or shift it to something else. So for me, it's about the experience and about taking the action in alignment with my declaration. That's how I do it, because no one can tell me. When we look at the scale of intention, when you go up to the positive levels, it starts at indifference in the middle. And Wayne Dyer talks about levels of intention as well. So he has 4, but we say you start at indifference, and then just like he says, there's wishing, and then there's wanting, and then there's asking, and then there's believing, and then there's committing, and then there's knowing, and then there's embodying. And so wishing and wanting gives you the experience of kind of striving for something. When you get into asking, you're starting to now take some active outside of yourself action. And when you ask, you get a response, which then can move you up to believing, right? So if I say I'm a coach and I go out there and I engage with people as such, and people are lit up, and I'm like, and I have some reflection that goes, oh, wow, yeah, this is who I am. And it feels right to me. Then I start to believe that. So now I'm at a higher level of intention. When I believe it, I'm willing to commit, which means I'm willing to even take more consistent action. And even sometimes when somebody responds that in a way that doesn't feel great, I still am committed to it. I'm still going to say, no, I still believe this. And through that commitment, it builds a knowing in my spirit, right? And so that's the higher, now you've moved up the scale again to knowing. And when you have a knowing, you can then embody it. So that is the way that I stay grounded, and that I look at my energy. It starts with declaring and defining and designing the anatomy of who I'm being. And then it's about taking action and moving myself along that scale of intention such that I am literally grounded. My energy is grounded in a knowing that enables me to embody what I say.
God,
that was a lot.
I love it. That was amazing. Wow. I'm like, yes, what she did. Hallelujah. Was Lisa
But it's
Nichols would go,
simple.
do I have a yes, yes? Yes.
Yes.
Oh, so cool, man. Oh, Radiah, we're coming to the end of our interview. I know. It goes so freaking quick.
It was fast.
Damn. So for each of my guests, I ask them 2 questions.
Okay.
The one question is, how do you want to change the world or challenge the world doing what you do?
Very, very straightforward. I want to see people expressing their own natural, unique beauty into the world, which are their ideas and intelligence and creations. And so my mantra is be whole, live well, create beauty. So my unique, specific gift and purpose here is to help people be whole and live well, take care of their bodies, enjoy and experience life, so that they can create the beauty that's inside of them that will impact the world positively.
Oh, man. So I'd like you to fill in the blanks, 3 of my core values and what they actually mean to you. So creativity for you is?
Expression. Air.
Cool.
My divine purpose. Our divine purpose. We are creators.
Yeah, we are creators, especially women. That's a different topic. Men are anyway.
Tomorrow at 7.
Yeah, exactly. Passion for you is?
Unbridled energy.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's just fuel.
Oh, fuel. Passion is fuel. I like that. Wisdom for you is?
Divine intelligence. I really do believe that everything is here that we need and we know and we have access to it. And so wisdom is, to me, allowing divine intelligence, allowing yourself to receive it and hear it, and then being willing to line yourself up with it and act in accordance with it.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for being with us here today. And
thank you.
I'm going to just quickly say that you can find more information about Radiah in the show notes, where you can find her social media handles, favorite book, favorite quote, and the closing line that I would like Radiah to just say that again, the be whole, and then we'll just then say goodbye then after that.
Yes. Be whole, live well, and create beauty.
Ooh, goosebumps. Thank you very much, Radiah. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Dang, that was just supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I enjoyed having you on board, and please do me and you a favor. Head on over to iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. Click subscribe, and a super bonus, leave your review and you stand a chance of being announced and advertised on the show. I'm always striving to ensure that your brand is uplifted and empowered. Remember, done is better than perfect. So be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and send in your feedback too. You're the absolute best. Keep rocking.